All right, everybody. I have got one crazy, crazy show ahead. Madison Marquette has asked me to meet with this young lady. Her name is Kara Witowski. I hope I am saying it correctly.
Witkow-
And how is it?
Witkowski.
Oh, Witkowski. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Um, and she is 22. Is that correct, Kara?
I was 22 when this all began. I
Okay,
am
got it.
25 now, going on
Okay.
26.
Okay. So Kara has I almost don't even know how to begin explaining the story, but I will say that the reason I titled it 50 Shades of Grey is um she was lured by a man. Is he older than you, Kara?
Oh yeah, he's 8 years older than me, and I was 17 when we first started seeing each other, and he was 25.
Right.
If I have that correct, I was just about to be 18. He was just about to be 26.
Okay, thank you. And she has gone through every mother's nightmare, and actually, quite frankly, every girlfriend's nightmare, everybody's nightmare. I mean, it's amazing. And so when Madison sent me your information and asked me to do this show, of course, my immediate reaction was yes, of yes, yes, yes. First of all, if Madison asked me, I'm probably going to do it anyway. But second of all, once I understood your story, I really wanted to do it for you because what I would love to share about this is I've never met Kara before and we've never spoken before. And my channel started out to be about like a couple of my best friends, truth and joy. And then I really wanted to add God to it. And really, God was going to be the primary thing because I wanted to start the Wilderness Church because I don't go to church, but I do believe in God deeply and I believe in Christ. And I wanted to share what it's like to be on the fringe of that because I felt kind of on the outs of it. But that's a whole nother story. But I just want to share with you, I'm not a true crime channel. I'm not, this is all kind of new to me. It's probably would have been more comfortable with Madison here, but she wasn't feeling well, so we're going to go on it without her. Are you cool with that, Kara?
Oh yeah, she
Okay.
let me know, so that's all good.
Okay. And then I wanted to let the audience know that the reason that Kara does not have her face on, it has nothing to do with her hiding her likeness. It was because this is such a heavy topic that it just makes it easier for her to detach if she's not watching herself. Does that sound about right? Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, that's definitely correct. It's just it's hard for me to see myself talking about all of this because it's just been so traumatic and so heavy. And a lot of people ask me, like, how can you talk about this so blankly? And like, how can you talk about it with such little emotion? And it's because I've been saying the same thing for 3 years now. And if I were to literally show all the emotion that I feel, I don't even think I'd be able to get a logical point across because it's just so painful and maddening what has occurred in the past 3 years.
Yeah. So let's start getting into it. I have watched two videos. One was the Unmask YouTube channel, which she did an amazing job, or the two of them did an amazing job. I think covering everything. It took 2.5 hours, and I'm sure they still had questions. So I know that we probably won't be on that long. So I was thinking that we would just kind of hit some points of, or maybe we could start off with you telling some basics and then me bringing up the parts that just kind of blew my mind. It's completely up to you though, because I can just go through some of the stuff that really stood out to me as being unbelievable.
Yeah, that sounds good. I would like to give a little bit of background. I won't
Okay.
go into so much detail as I did it in the unmasked because I want to get more into the court portion and my son and my daughter.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll give a little bit of detail about the overall relationship. And if you want me to start doing that now, I can do that.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. Do that.
Sure. So basically, I left my step grandmother's home at 17 to go live with a friend of mine on the north side of Chicago. We had a mutual friend who was living with Tom at the time, and I needed a new place to live because my friend wanted her boyfriend to move in.
Okay.
So
And
I moved.
before you keep going, Tom would be your sperm donor. And I'm laughing because I hate to even call him their father based on all that I have heard. But other
Yeah.
people wouldn't know who Tom was. So I just wanted to say who that was.
Oh, sure. That's totally fine. So anyways, so I didn't really have a place to live. His mother had apartment complexes. She owns a bunch of apartment complexes down on the south side of Chicago, and it was 300 a room. And at that point, I really didn't make much money. I was working as a an assistant manager at a wing stop, which is basically like fried food, chicken, whatnot. So I, of course, jumped on that. Um, Basically, what Tom had told me, and Tom is the person who I had children with. So he had told me that he was into BDSM, and that's kind of how he approached it. That my friend had told him that I had some interest in it. Well, the reason why I had any interest in it at all was my step grandmother had given me all three of the 50 Shades of Grey books
Right.
for Christmas. So I had read all of them. I thought it was a little bit intriguing. The reason why I thought it was intriguing is like throughout my childhood, throughout my life, I've had absolutely no control. I've not had the best childhood. It was very abusive, and there's a lot of issues that caused me to want some sort of an assertive, domineering factor in my life, just so I felt like it was a way for me to start building some sort of boundaries and I don't know, to just basically create something that had structure, if that makes sense. Because I never had
Well,
structure.
I want you to feel really comfortable. First of all, I'm not anyone that would judge somebody, and I don't think anyone should. I also think that at 17 years old to read a book like that would be provocative. I will say that at I don't know however old I was when it came out, I started reading it and thought the characters had no depth, and so I just stopped reading it. But I could see where it would be very enticing because I knew of hundreds of women that were just going crazy over it. I mean, it was all in the news, it was everywhere. So I want you to be at ease with understanding that you are in a place where you are safe and that there is no judgment here. And I also will protect the comments.
Sure. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And all that, I was really thinking it would be was very like light. I didn't think there would be anything major. I was
Right.
like expecting like light spanking, stuff like that. And he was just like at first I was very comfortable with him. He was very charming, very kind, very sweet, very gentle with me. Everything was consensual at that time. He was definitely pushing my boundaries, but like I said, it was all on a consensual basis. And at that time, I also felt like he saved me because he offered me this place to live where I had no place to live. I
Right.
wasn't even speaking to my family at that time. Like I was totally alone.
Right.
And I kind of pictured him as like my savior. So I would literally do anything that he asked or he wanted me to do because I was so blinded and in love with him. And at 17 and you know, him being 25, about to be 26, like there was a huge age difference and I
Yes.
was easily manipulated into his web. I mean, he had started off by telling me, he had three jobs, that he had all these goals, all these plans, all these aspirations, and none of that turned out to be true. The
Yeah.
only job that he really had was he would literally just call in a number for a company that you were supposed to be taking care of elderly people. And he never went to see this elderly person once. He would just call in the number and get paid by the government for doing absolutely nothing and then buy this guy cigarettes. Like, that's not a job.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely not.
and as time progressed, I started seeing like little red flags here and there, but nothing major to show like this person is an abuser or anything of that nature. He also came from a place of abuse. Like, he was abused very badly as a child, sexually and physically. And that was something like we really bonded over and like we could share with one another. And like,
Was it by a family member or was it from
no,
somebody?
he said it was a priest.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
After what's happened, though, I don't know if I quite believe that after everything that's occurred, and like I'll get into that. I feel like he just named somebody to name them,
Right.
because people often are very afraid of naming a family member.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
anyways, so our relationship started off very well. I mean, it was definitely the honeymoon phase. There was no issues, except for like little lies I would catch him in here and there. The fact that he still would not get any stable work.
Right.
But overall, like, I was happy, he was happy,
Right.
and we were doing well.
Right.
So in the beginning, we were just kind of seeing each other. There was nothing really like tying anyone down.
Right.
He was the one that was like, hey, I really want you to be my girlfriend. I want to be your boyfriend. Like, let's make this official. And that was after maybe 3 months. And I said,
Yeah, I was
okay.
just going to ask if it was about 4 months in, just because I've had so much experience with narcissism that the love bombing stage usually lasts like 3 to 4 months.
Yep. It was like 3 to 4 months. And he asked me to be his girlfriend. I was like, yep, okay, I'll be your girlfriend. Everything was still going pretty well. There were hints of jealousy that popped up here and there, but that's like normal in any relationship. So I would just kind of toss it off. And, the thing that really bothered me most of all was just like him not working.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but he was showing that he was like going to online school. I don't even know if that was true, because he was so good at manipulation and lying. I'm not sure if that was true, but I at least saw that as he's doing something, you know?
Right. Yes. No,
So,
I definitely do. And one of the things that I want to share is that you clearly are a very, very hard worker and a very conscientious person. And those are usually the type of people that predators prey upon.
oh yeah,
And so I want you to also realize that these lessons that you're learning at such a young age that are so hard are absolutely going to serve not only you, but possibly thousands of people.
thank you. Well, the whole time we were together, and even now, like, even through the court battle, even through the death of my son, like, I never stopped working. That's something I just don't do. I don't stop working for longer than a week. It was literally a week after my son's passing, I was back at work, because
Wow.
I just know what I have to do.
Yeah.
So anyways, so when things started getting rough was I found out I was pregnant. I had started feeling some things here and there, but I'd never been pregnant before. So I didn't really know, I was just getting some signs, like I was getting really thirsty. I was getting really tired, but I was also overworking myself. So I was like, oh, it could be, many things. I don't know. I
Right.
think one of the biggest things was like I had fainted. And finally I was like, Mom, you got to take me to the doctor. I got to figure out what's going on here. And she took me. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was already 3 months pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah. And when they showed me the little it's not autopsy, I'm sorry, ultrasound, I was in love, like immediately. I was like, oh my God, like I can't, this is inside of me and this is going to be my child. And like, I just want to give this child the best possible life. Well, when I
Right.
told Tom, he was infuriated. He accused me of trying to trap him. He accused me of being a whore. His mother even accused me of saying that wasn't her son's baby. Like, all this horrible stuff that went on. And he kept telling me, like, you need to get an abortion. You need to get an abortion. I was like, no, I absolutely am not getting an abortion. It's not something I want to do. One of the things I brought up to him was doing an open adoption, because I had absolutely no money. I was only making $10 an hour. I was very young. I wanted to give this child the best possible life, but I knew that I couldn't. I did not have much family that was in my life. And I just knew that probably was not the best case scenario for this little one that I'd be bringing into the world. So I wanted to talk to him about open adoption. And he immediately was pissed off at that. He's like, you can't do that. That child has my genetics. I don't want that child going to anyone else other than me, or for them to be dead, so as in an abortion. I was like, well, I'm not doing an abortion. So along the lines, I started getting like these cravings, and many of my cravings were for like salty foods and sour foods. And I had read online like, oh, that could be a boy. So I started telling him like, oh, I think I'm having a boy. I think I'm having a boy. And automatically a personality flip. It's just like, oh, I really want a boy. I really want us to have a boy. I'm excited for a boy. And all of a sudden I'm building a nursery and I'm getting things together, and he wants to be in this child's life, and he wants to be a father because he thinks it's a boy. Well, again, find out our child is not a boy, it's a girl. I tell him our child is a girl, and another personality flip. I hate you. How could you do this to me? I don't want to raise some stripper slut. Go get an abortion. Like, I want absolutely nothing to do with you. I'm like, no. I put together a nursery. I now have a second job. I'm working my tail off. I know I can be a mom because I've done everything basically by myself this far. Like, you said you were going to raise this child with me. We're going to raise this child. Like, you can't just sit there and back out because of the gender of our child. And he was still trying to back out. I actually left to go live with my mom for a bit because I was in so much pain during the pregnancy, and there was something wrong during the pregnancy. I had like an elongated placenta. I don't remember the exact term of it,
Right.
but my pregnancy was high risk.
Okay.
So while I was staying with my mom, he's just like, see other people. I want nothing to do with you. I hate you, blah, blah, blah. So I actually went on a date with this one guy just for like coffee or dinner. I don't remember which it was. It was either coffee or dinner. It was nothing serious. It wasn't a big deal. And I told Tom about it. I was like, oh, I went on a date. And he was infuriated with me. He's like, how could you do that? I hate you. Why would you do this to me? You know, you're hurting me, all this other stuff. And I'm like, because you told me you didn't want to be with me, to see other people. You don't want our daughter. Like, and I'm like losing my mind at this point. I'm like, what do you want from me? And at this point I was 19 years old. I was about to turn 20. Like, so we'd already been together for about a year before I even found out I was pregnant. So
Right. So you were 18 when you were pregnant then?
No, I just turned 19.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So sorry if my timeline's a little off.
Yeah, no, and actually, I mean, because of half years and stuff, I mean, who knows where you were, but yeah, got it.
But so I ended up moving back in with him at his mom's apartment complex. And I told him basically that what I wanted to do was I wanted him to come to our daughter's birth. Even if you don't want to be a part of her life, I feel like it's important that you at least come to her birth. So he told me the only way that he would come to our daughter's birth was if I had agreed to keep my daughter's last name as my last name, because he didn't want a girl to have his last name, which is why my daughter's last name is Witkowski and not Biel, but my son's last name is Biel. So I agreed to that. He came to the hospital. I had our daughter. After our daughter was born, he was like a completely different person. He was kind to our daughter. He was sweet to our daughter. He treated me like garbage, and basically ignored my existence, but he was amazing with our daughter. And that's not something I could deny. Like, whenever I needed him to be there, he was there. I was going through postpartum depression, and he was there. He was very caring towards her, very nurturing towards her, very loving towards her. And, you know, I really didn't have a great relationship with my dad. Mm-hmm. And it meant a lot to me how close they were. And I didn't want to take that from my daughter. So Absolutely. I basically talked to him and I was like, you know, let's try to work this out. You clearly love our daughter. You know, let's figure this out.
And you guys had stopped having like the whole 50 Shades of Grey thing by then. Okay.
Yeah, I should have stated that. But yes, after I found out I was pregnant and I told him, he completely said no to that, didn't want anything to do with it, because basically felt like I had betrayed him. So, and that's not something that you can do in that role, in his opinion. So he felt like me being pregnant was a betrayal. And
Sexual, yes, sexual betrayal.
I don't even know it, like you would have to understand the way his mind works, which even I don't understand the way his mind works. But
Yeah.
basically, he just told me, I don't want this with you anymore. We're done. You know, it was what it was back then, but we're never going to do it again. And this is something that I'm not continuing with you. So yeah, there was absolutely nothing between us. The contract that he had made me sign previously, and he had made me sign it when I was like 17. I didn't read through it, very young. It was like one night that we were together, and we were both drinking from what I remember. And like I had ripped it up the next day, so it literally didn't mean anything anyways.
Right.
But yeah, there was nothing like that between us anymore. Any resemblance of that dynamic was gone. It was just two people raising a child
A
together
child, but in the same apartment.
in the same apartment, correct?
Got it.
So as we get, you know, further into my daughter's life, I told him we need to get out of the South Side of Chicago. It's not a place for our daughter to live and grow up and be in. So we went to go move in with his father, where his father had never been prevalent at all in my life or Tom's life. I remember going to maybe 2 dinners before our daughter was born. And as soon as our daughter was born, like his dad was there with everything, was very obsessed with being involved, needed to be notified about everything, controlled what my daughter ate, what she drank, who she was with, what she did. Just this very powerful, controlling, dominant attitude towards my daughter, which was
And he
very,
was never ever like that before with you.
no,
Interesting. And was it healthy stuff, or was it just that he had to control? It wasn't about like, I want her to have like organic food. It was just, I want to be in charge of it all.
oh, it was, I need to be in charge of it all, because like one of the things he did that made absolutely no sense was he wanted her to have apple juice and only drink apple juice and wouldn't give her milk. So yeah, it was literally just to see what he could do to control situations. And I'd be
Yeah.
like, you can't just keep giving a child apple juice. You're going to have a weight problem, teeth issues. Like,
Right. Right.
you can't just do that. So anyways, so we did move in with him for a bit, and I started noticing all this control, and it was not sitting right with me. I didn't like it. He would also have a tendency to like walk around in just his underwear in front of me and my daughter.
It's
And that was
very
really
creepy.
gross to me. Yeah. And want to sleep with my daughter in that state. And I was like, nope, I can't do this anymore. We need to get out of here. It's not something I'm going to put up with anymore. So we moved into his other condo, thinking that we'd have some space, that, we'd be left alone. Nope. We moved into his other condo. He would come in whenever he felt like it because he had a key, just barge in. Again, very controlling of the condo, controlling of my daughter, constantly wanting to take my daughter to his house, have her sleep over, etc. And I would tell Tom, like, I don't want this. I'm not comfortable with this.
So
You know,
your mom intuition was already
yeah,
feeling something, but you
yeah.
couldn't quite peg what it was.
Now, this was where it gets difficult, because I'm working about 120 hours a week doing live-ins with clients because somebody needed to have some money coming in,
Right.
and he still was not working. So I don't drive due to a medical condition,
Okay.
and he was the only driver. So what he would do is he would take our daughter, even though I would tell him no or not give permission, to his father's whenever he felt like it. So in order to get around this, what I decided to do, I was like, you know what? I saved up this money, even though I'm paying for literally every single one of our bills and food and everything else. I want to get us out of here. Let's go to Elk Grove Village. So I got us a condo in Elk Grove Village, literally threw down $2,500 just for the deposit alone to get us a place in Elk Grove Village. And I think it was $1,200 a month for the rent, which we were supposed to split, but he never paid it. So we went to go move to Elk Grove Village, and I basically told him, like, you're our daughter's father. I'm our daughter's mother. We need to raise our child. You don't want me bringing her to work with me because you said it's not a good environment. And the stepmother, which I really like, her name is Helena. That's his father's wife. She said it wasn't a good environment either. And she didn't like the fact that I was taking my daughter to work. Not to mention my clients were getting upset about it because my daughter had, some behavioral issues that weren't convenient for my clients. So he was still going behind my back and bringing our daughter to his father. And I was like, this is just getting ridiculous. Like, it seemed like no matter what I would do, what boundaries I would set, he would just walk all over me and not care.
When you
And
when you would question him, what would his answer be?
he was like, well, this is the Polish way, because he's off the boat Polish. And so it's his family. And he'd be like, the grandparents raised the children in Poland. Like, you're not understanding because you come from poor family values. You didn't really have a family growing up, but this is how it works. And he
Got
would
it.
basically use the fact that I didn't have family support against me. And that's why I was unknown to it. Like,
Okay.
this is totally normal. You're freaking out for no reason, like gaslighting.
Yes.
A lot of it.
Yes.
So so we were living in Elk Grove. Elk Grove was expensive but doable. He was still having her go see his dad. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's move again. Because this time I wanted to move I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. So
It's
at
okay.
this time, when we're living in Elk Grove, I had decided at this point, I didn't want to have another child with another man because I didn't want to overly complicate things. Tom and I were doing well, other than the constant fighting about his father.
Right.
And like, we had actually repaired our relationship to the point where we were together. We
Oh,
were a
okay.
girlfriend, boyfriend. We were even talking about getting married. Our daughter had been baptized. There were little things here and there, like I said, like the not getting a job and, his gaslighting with his father. But other than that, it wasn't abusive. There weren't issues. So I asked him, I go, do you want to have, a second child with me? Because I want our daughter to have a brother. And at that time, our daughter was 2. So it was a perfect time.
Right.
And he thought about it. He's like, well, I want to do some research first. And he did the research, found out that children with siblings are better off and that they're more sociable. And there was other statistics that we read about where it would be better for our daughter to have a sibling growing up. And he eventually agreed. And he was like, yeah, I want to do this. This is my choice. This is your choice. Let's have a second child. So it took like nothing for me to get pregnant. It was literally the first time I was pregnant. And
Knowing, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to, just for younger viewers, knowing what you know now, would you continue dating someone who's doing little tiny lies, or who's allowing their parents to run things, or in and out of things, or giving you excuses? I'm
absolutely
asking sincerely. And so what would you tell somebody that was younger that's kind of dismissing, oh, it's just a little lie?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would not tell them to keep going with that, because those were all red flags that I should have completely taken in. I should have left him. I should have been gone. And all I was looking at was the fact that this man took me in when no one else took me in.
Yeah.
And this man, was my savior. Like, that's what I was looking at. And like, to me, that was such a huge thing.
Yes.
All these other little things, like, I was ignoring, but absolutely not. No, now, knowing what I know now, anytime I date someone and I start seeing a red flag, I'm gone. I'm literally out the door. I'm like, I can't do this with you. One thing is, if someone looks at your phone constantly, if someone's making comments about your weight, your style,
Yeah,
wanting to
absolutely.
control you. And those were little things that he would do too, but I didn't know
Yes.
those were abusive techniques, because
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, he just likes to me to wear this outfit, or he just wants me to hang out with this friend. But he was literally isolating me from friends I had, from family I had, was forcing me to work so much that I had no idea that what was going on. I didn't know left from right because I was so overworked. But
And he
yeah,
pushed you off center a lot. Like, he would push you off center and save you, push you off center and save you.
exactly. So we ended up having our son. He was very adamant that our son had to be a boy. And I'm like, well, I can't choose the gender of our child. Like, if our child is a boy, he's a boy. If our child is a girl, it's a girl. And he's like, and he was just so adamant about needing a boy to carry on his family name and whatever. And when we did find out that our child was a boy, like, the pregnancy went so smooth sailing. It wasn't even funny. Like, he was doting to me. He even was doing Lyft and Uber for a bit, bringing in some extra money. Like, it was another honeymoon phase, basically. Like, he treated me so well throughout the pregnancy with my son. Whereas with the pregnancy with my daughter was completely the opposite. It was extremely abusive. There were even times where he would tell me to kill myself while I was pregnant with her. And with my son, it was complete opposite. It was like a whole different person. But this was where it flipped again.
Right.
So after I had my son, I was ecstatic. I mean, I was so happy. I didn't have an epidural. The pregnancy was wonderful. His birth was incredible. Like, we did skin to skin right away. And I just felt this immediate, intense connection with him where I was just full of love and happiness and joy. And like, I never wanted my son to leave my side.
Aww.
My son saw his grandfather maybe twice.
Right.
He never slept over with him. I never allowed them to control what he ate, what he drank, how he was. Like, I raised my son primarily by myself. So when I had my son, I was expecting.
And so the grandfather wasn't as doting on him and controlling as with your son?
Not at all. Not at all.
Do you have a philosophy on that?
I do not. I do not have a philosophy on that. I feel like I was a big reason why, because I just literally wouldn't allow it. Like, I would bring my son to work with me. I would not care.
Yeah.
Would just keep my son away from them completely. Well, okay. Tom started noticing like how close I was with my son. And I noticed this personality flip with Tom, where right after I had my son, he was very mean to me, rude to me, ignoring me again. There was no affection. There was no kissing me, holding me, loving me. It was all just very standoffish.
Right.
And just ignoring my existence, basically. It just like a very painful way to live.
Yeah.
The way he was treating me. So we moved into a house because I felt like with 2 kids, we needed to get out of a condo and move into a house. So I got us a house in Elgin through my boss, because my boss's father-in-law actually built the house from his bare hands.
Oh, wow.
And the father-in-law's wife was my client. So he wanted me to have the house for my kids. So we moved in.
What a blessing.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was so happy. I mean, I had a 3-bedroom house, something I've always wanted. I had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. Like, I was very ecstatic, other than who was going to be my fiance treating me like garbage. I was very excited. So anyways, there was one night where, things just got so strange so fast. So I had tucked my son in. He was in a pack and play in the living room at the Elk Grove Village house. So this was still when we lived in the Elk Grove Village house. We had not moved yet.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I'm backtracking.
That's okay. No, I'm with you. You've already got the house, but you hadn't moved into it yet.
Yes, exactly. Like, yeah, I confirmed that we were going to have the house. So it was, that it was in writing. The lease was in writing, all that. But our move-in date wasn't until, I want to say, December. So this happened in the Elk Grove Village house, either August or September. It was close to my birthday. My birthday is September 8th. So I had just tucked James in to bed, and he was in his pack and play. And it was in the living room, because it was only a 2-bedroom condo, and my daughter had the other room. So James slept in the living room. So I went into my room. Tom wasn't home. I was just laying on the bed. And I was playing with my phone. I was laying on my stomach, playing with my phone. I hear the door open. He comes in. He grabs me from behind, pushes my face down into the mattress as hard as he can, inserts his penis into my butt, and I'm screaming, I'm crying, I'm begging for him to stop. He doesn't stop. He keeps pushing my face in deeper into the mattress, and I keep telling him to stop. I'm screaming, I'm crying. I'm literally taking my fingernails and clawing into the mattress, trying to get out from underneath this man. He told me to shut the fuck up at one point, and I was in so much pain that my body just went limp. And I remember I was finally able to get my face to look at the window. So I just like laid my head and stared at the window as he was finished raping me. And then when he was done, he pulled out, he looked at me, and I'll never forget the words that came out of his mouth, because he just smiled and he asked me how I enjoyed my anal rape. And I was in such disbelief and shock about what had happened that I didn't say anything. I sat there completely awestruck. I
Oh, I
ran
could imagine. And this is a year and a half or
Yeah,
2 years
it
later?
was 2 years later. 2 years later, I ran into the bathroom and I'm crying my eyes out. And I text my friend and I'm like, I think I was just raped. And he's like, what are you talking about? Because my friend knew about our relationship and he knew like it was kind of back and forth, but
Yeah.
he never knew this person to be abusive. I never knew this person to be abusive. So
Well,
I
what's so
described,
crazy is, I mean, just the fact that you needed validation from somebody else shows you how off center he had you.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I described to my friend exactly what happened. He was like, yeah, you were just raped. Like, what the fuck? And I'm just like, I'm bewildered. Like, I'm absolutely in shock. I couldn't think. I couldn't do anything. I just literally sat on the toilet, I think, for over an hour, just not even knowing what to do. And I don't remember even what happened next, honestly. But the next day, I confronted him and I told him, I was like, you raped me. Like, why? Why did you do this?
And
And
was that in person, on the phone, via
it was in
text?
person. It was in
Okay.
person. Um, and he was just like, I'm so sorry. I'm very sick. He told me about his sexual abuse as a kid and that he gets episodes and that he has this dissociative identity disorder where he has multiple personalities. And I mean, he was so
And had
unbelievable.
you ever heard him say something like that before, that he had DID?
No,
Okay.
but this man was literally bawling as he was telling me this. It was incredibly manipulative and convincing. Like he was crying his eyes out about all this. And
Probably because he was afraid to go to jail, POS.
but that's not like that was not how I was thinking then.
No, I know, but I'm just, I'm telling you how I'm thinking right now. Wow, that is just horrible. And of course, I mean, how you can even be thinking is um, beyond me, because it's all such, you were living in like one of those haunted or what do they call them, the funny houses where the mirrors are shaped different, so your reality isn't looking like it really is to you because everything is so skewed.
Exactly. So I told him, I want nothing to do with you, because I had told him about my childhood trauma. And I really felt that he had used that against me, because it was literally a week after I disclosed to him in detail about what had happened to me as a child that this happened. And one of the things that I think why he did this was because I had never disclosed to authorities or anyone the individual who traumatized me as a child due to it being a
Family.
difficult family situation. And I feel like he knew that he had the same sort of immunity,
Right.
given that we
He's
had
the
two children together.
right. Right.
And and I felt like that's why he did what he did, because he could easily manipulate the situation.
And
But
get away with it.
and get away with it. Exactly. But I told him, I want nothing to do with you. I'm gonna go seek other people just for satisfaction. While we're living together, I said we can live in the same house. Well, actually, at first I didn't even say that. I was gonna leave him. I told him like I wanted to be done. I didn't want anything to do with him. And that's when he said, you know, please, if you'll just stay in the same house with me, I'll get therapy. I'll work on myself. I'll be a better person. I just need help. And he was like, oh, no one's ever given me a chance to get help before. I've never been in therapy, blah, blah. And like, I felt that I could understand that. And that resonated with me, you know, that he'd never gotten that help. And, you know, when you're traumatized so horribly by sex abuse, like, I get how you could go down the wrong path without not getting help. And I felt for him for that. So I was like, okay, I'll give you the opportunity, you know, to get help. And if you show me that you're doing better, like we can continue this arrangement kind of thing. So he agreed for me seeing other people. And obviously that's not what he wanted, because the second I did start seeing other people, he got incredibly abusive. I was a whore. I was a slut. I was a bitch. I was a horrible person. Anything and everything you could call a person, he would call me. And he would do it in front of our kids. He would do it in front of the babysitter that I had to hire because I was so sick of him taking our daughter to see his father. So I literally hired a babysitter at $200 a month just so she didn't have to keep seeing his dad. And it worked for a good portion. And yet he still took her there 2 days out of the week. But it worked somewhat better than what was going on. So while he's saying all these horrible things to me and is trash talking me up and down, and he also started doing things like grinding on me in front of the kids, being very forceful. One time he like put his hand on my crotch in front of our children. Just things like he would do to show that I was his, even though I was not. And it was this need of control and the need of telling you like you're underneath me kind of thing all the time. And I was getting sick of it.
I was just going to say, did you start having anxiety or depression, or like,
Yeah.
was it hitting you on any physical levels yet? Because I know a lot of times they choose women that are very, very strong.
I mean, I was having a hard time focusing at work. I would shake with my hands just from looking at my phone because of all the horrible things like he would send me. I would start crying sometimes randomly throughout the day. Like I was having complete breakdowns when I would talk to my therapist about all this, because she was like the first person I disclosed the rape to.
Right.
And
did she suggest that, you know, you tell authorities, or what advice did you get on that?
She really didn't give me any advice. She just kind of listened to what I said, and she tried to talk to me about coping mechanisms. She understood why I was staying. She understood the kids and how messy the situation would be. So she got it. And like Tom had threatened me beforehand that he would literally take my kids to Poland, that he would take them away from me, that I would never see them again because he was an EU citizen. So all that stuff was already in my mind too.
Right.
Not to mention the fact, like he had told me once, he goes, you would have to explain to the cops how a TP fell on you 15 times if you ever tried to leave this house, as in leaving him and the kids. He told me that he would throw me down the steps of that when we were living at the Elgin house. Like he was terrifying. Yeah. And I was literally just stuck in this prison with this man who was threatening to kill me with no way out, especially since we had 2 kids.
Did you have faith at all? I mean, had you had good experiences with God, or did you have faith, or a history of faith or anything?
I did not, and that's mostly because of my childhood sex abuse. Okay. It was very difficult for me to believe in anything. Now I'm actually creating a relationship with God.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, I'm finding love. I'm finding hope and faith. You know, I was going to church. I stopped for a brief time, but I'm going to go back because I'm really trying to work on that healing relationship.
So happy to hear that.
But back to everything that was going on. So you talked about me struggling with anxiety. Like, yeah, what he did to me exacerbated my PTSD full-heartedly.
Oh yeah.
And after the 7-month mark of dealing with it, like I couldn't take it anymore. I was overworked. I was stressed to my limit. I was being told that I was going to be killed. I was being told that my children were being taken away from me. And like I snapped. I straight up snapped. Like I was supposed to go to a live-in for work one day, and I could not get out of bed. I could not leave my bed, and I just wanted to die. Like
Yeah.
I was done. I couldn't do it anymore. And his friend, who had his own personal issues with mental illness, recommended that I go to this place in Chicago to get some mental health help, and I did.
Okay,
went,
so Tom was suggesting where you should go for mental health.
no, Tom's friend,
Okay, got it. And
which
so do you question, like, was that kind of a setup?
yes, yes, I do, because there was nothing on paper for my adult life of any addiction, any issues, any mental illness, anything. There was nothing on paper. So
Right.
nothing could have been used against me in court until this happened.
Got it.
So yeah, I definitely think that scumbag played me 100%.
Yeah, that's when I was listening to you on Unmasked, that was all I could think of is, that's really interesting that it's somebody that he knows that's
Yep.
suggesting it.
So
And
I
then it
went,
ended up not going well. And just for everyone listening, this isn't even, this is horrific, horrendous, disgusting, despicable, all of the worst words that you can, detestable. I think that's the worst one in the Bible, detestable. But this isn't even the worst part of the story yet. It continues to just keep getting worse.
so I
And
went, sorry, go on.
no, you're good. I would like to, like, this is a lot to take in, and I know that there's a piece where it's going to get worse. Can we take like a little break and just share why you did kind of switch over to being interested in God again, or having faith, hope, and love back in your life?
Sure.
Yay.
Um, so I've had so many people that have reached out to me and that have helped me, friends, yeah, a community now that we've created through Justice for James, people I've met that have dealt with the court situation that have reached out to me that I've become close friends with. My best friend from high school, her new husband, all these people who have rallied behind me and have come together and have showed me that love and have shown me that faith. And even like the small justices that I've had with people stepping down from positions of authority after they've failed so miserably, and being listened to finally with with the things that I've been saying and being taken seriously. I mean, 28,000 people, over 28,000 people now have signed our petition. I mean, and that is not a small feat. That's 28,000 people that believe that my son deserves justice and want to know what actually happened and not the court cover up. I mean, that's huge in itself. But then
Absolutely.
Justice for James has 15,000 people. The Unmasked video had 20,000 people that watched it, and just seeing how many people actually care. Because there's this old saying like, oh, if you scream rape, like no one's going to come and help you. So you scream fire instead of rape. And I've proven that you can scream rape and people will actually care.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you for that little love break. It makes me happy. I want everyone to know that we will have the petition. I'm assuming you're still trying to get more people.
Yes.
We'll put that in the description box. Do you have a goal number?
No, honestly, as many people that will sign it, like that would just be amazing. If it keeps going up and up and up, that keeps showing the validity of what we need to have done. So
Yes.
I don't want to mark it at a goal and then have people stop signing, if that makes
Yes.
sense.
No, absolutely. And I do know that as as something becomes very, very newsworthy and there's more and more interest in it, it forces lawyers or judges or different people to begin using their weight, if they're good people, to try and help. So I definitely would ask anybody to share the petition or share this video, or whatever we can do to assist her in getting those numbers up would be awesome. I mean, there's almost 200 people just watching live, and if you guys could just make a mental commitment to help her by going to it, and I will have it in the description box. If you want to go ahead and say it now, though, for those that are interested, that'd be great.
So the petition is called Reopen the Investigation for James Ryker Biel. And besides the petition, I also have a GoFundMe for my daughter to get her into my custody fully.
Yeah.
So that is something I can send you as well for your description box. And then our page is called Justice for James.
Justice for James. Okay. And so now we can go into this, second part of this, where you're going to be able to share this horrific story, but we're sharing it for a couple of reasons. One, we definitely want to protect other children. This is something that's very, very important, and the more people that understand this, the better. Two, we want her daughter to be free from this possibility of this outcome happening for her. And then, of course, we would love for you to have peace again in your life. And so let's go down that dark road together.
Sure. So, like I said, I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital for a week. While I was in the hospital, Tom actually came to get rent from me while I was in the hospital. So even when I was in the hospital, I was the responsible party. I was still paying for everything, and I was still doing everything. So I got back from the hospital. Things were okay for a week. He was very nice. He was very kind. Things seemed good, I guess. But then it went straight back to ignoring me, treating me like crap. Very abusive behavior, with calling me horrible names in front of my children still, and the threats that he would do on a daily basis. And he was pushing me to actually kill myself. He kept telling me to kill myself after I came out of a hospital for wanting to do that to myself. Yeah. And he was saying it before I went into the hospital too, which was another reason why it exacerbated those feelings of suicide. So I want to make it very clear, though, that I never attempted suicide.
Right.
And I went to the hospital to get help before that happened.
Right.
So I just feel like that's an important part.
It absolutely is. Yes.
So we get into March of 2019. So March of 2019, pretty much the same scenario. I'm laying on the bed, on my stomach. I'm on my phone. He wasn't even supposed to be home because I had just gotten him this new job working at a factory, and he was going to be with his friend, and then he was going to go to the job because it was a nighttime job. So I was just, laying down on my phone doing my thing. I had just tucked in James. So James was sleeping in the other room. So this was at our Elgin house. And all of a sudden I hear the door open. Before I could even look to see that it was Tom, I'm already being held down from behind. My face is in the mattress again. He thrust himself inside of me as hard as he possibly could. I let out this piercing yelp. I'm screaming at him to get off of me. I'm crying. Again, I'm digging my nails into the mattress. I'm trying to get away from him, trying to get away, to remove myself from him and just run away. And I can't, because his entire weight is on me. I could not even, I couldn't do anything. I just was trapped, and he wouldn't stop. And I kept screaming at him to stop and stop and stop. And my voice was muffled, and I'm crying, and he just goes, I'm not going to stop until I come. And so as I'm continuing to cry and scream and attempt to get away from him, he finishes, he pulls himself out, and um, I ran into the bathroom once again, and I'm crying. And he comes into the bathroom after me, washes his hands, and then flicks the water in my face
Oh my
after he just
gosh.
got done raping me. And then he just
Wow.
walks out like nothing happened to go to work. Like he didn't just fucking rape the person that was going
It's
to
like
be his
he's
wife.
possessed like a demon, the way he's behaving, especially with that trashy thing with the water. Oh my gosh, Kara.
And that was my breaking point. I called my friend and I'm like, you need to get me out of here. Because before he had even started the rape, he had told me that if I didn't comply, he was going to lock me inside the attic. Um, so I told my friend, I was like, he's threatening me all the time. He's saying these things in front of the kids. He's calling me a whore, a bitch, anything you can imagine in front of the kids. This is the second time he's now raped me. He told me he was going to get help. He even took me to the place where he's seeing his therapist, proving that he's seeing somebody. Like, I don't know what to do anymore. I said, I know I have 2 children with him, and he's telling me that he's going to take the kids away, and I'm terrified of that happening. And she was just like, well, you need to come stay here. And the plan was to stay there for a week, get some space between us, figure things out, and then, move on from there. I was never going to live in New Hampshire. I was going to stay there for a week to get safe,
Right.
because things had exacerbated to a level where I was not safe, and neither were the kids.
Right.
Because he raped me with my son literally in
Oh
the
no, I
neck.
mean he's clearly dangerous.
Yeah.
Clearly.
So, you know, she was aware of the plan. She knew what was going on. All of a sudden, he starts messaging me, and he's like, "Oh, do you want to go to the flower festival tomorrow?" Like acting as if nothing had happened, just like not acknowledging a damn thing. And I was on this PTSD group, and I described the assault in graphic detail about what happened to me. And somebody actually stupidly messaged him about it, because even though
Messaged him?
messaged him, one of the supporters in the group messaged him about what I had said, because they had looked on my profile and saw that he was on my profile.
Wow.
Yeah. So they sent him a message and probably a screenshot, I'm assuming, of what I posted. Mind you, I didn't even say that it was an assault, even though it was, because I didn't want people to call the cops. I already had a plan. I didn't want things getting messy. So he's like, what, do you want the cops to arrest me at my new job? Do you want to ruin everything? Do you want to ruin the kids' lives and my life because of this? Like, what are you doing? And like, I told him straight out, I said in the post, like, I didn't say this was a rape. This was a rape, but I didn't say that in the post.
But the
And
other girls recognized it.
yeah, because it was
Yeah.
so brutal. And he's just like, you need to delete the post, you need to delete this post. And like, this is a man who's been threatening to kill me and telling me to kill myself. So I'm fucking terrified of him. Excuse
Yeah.
my language.
No,
But
yeah.
so I deleted the post. And the next day I confronted him. I was like, you can't keep doing this. I go, you raped me again. You told me you would never do this, and you don't change. You're not getting help, or you are getting help. It doesn't seem like anything is getting better. I don't know what to do anymore. And he's just like, oh, I'm so sorry. I experienced another dissociative feeling, blah blah. And I just let him say his crap, because I already had a plan. So
Right.
like, say whatever you want at this point. So the next day we go to breakfast at his dad's house, me and the kids and him, and we're eating breakfast, and all of a sudden he just like takes off and leaves. And I'm like, okay, why is he just leaving? This is so random. And then he comes back, and we're like messaging, because he doesn't like his dad to hear what we talk about. So we're messaging over the phone. And I was like, where'd you go? And he claims that he went to see his therapist again, that he described in great detail what I said that he did to me, that his therapist said he experienced this dissociative fugue. Like, all this is in text messages. All of this is in Facebook messages, where he
Right.
admits to all these horrible things, including having antisocial personality disorder, including being a risk to our children. Like, all of this stuff is documented. There were, and there's two sets of messages. There's one from the first assault, and there's one from the assault I'm talking about now. And the one I'm talking about now is where he said he experienced the dissociative fugue and that he experiences blackouts. So anyways, so my next day I go to my work, and he was supposed to bring James to me because I always have James with me at work. So I thought it was really weird that he didn't immediately bring James to me. So I was concerned about that. And I said, like, go get James. Like, he just like left him in the car. So he goes and grabs James while I'm at work, and then he corners me and he's like, how could you do the one thing that would make me kill myself? And I'm literally like, I'm in tears. I'm like, you keep raping me and threatening to kill me. Like, what other choice do I have? What do you want? You know, what else do I have to do at this point? Because he had basically seen the itinerary that my friend had sent me for the plane, because he was snooping through my emails and everything else, which I didn't know he had the passwords to. Mm-hmm. So, as this happens and he's confronting me, my boss comes out, my client's husband, my boss's husband, and they're all like, you need to leave. And Tom keeps saying, like, he wants me to go in the car with him alone. And my boss is like, no, she's not going anywhere with you. Because my boss was the one who was going to take me to the airport. So he basically says that if he's to go, as in talking about killing himself, that he's not the only one that'll be going. And he threatens my children right in front of them. And they just keep telling him to leave. And finally he leaves. After he leaves, I get a call on my phone. I go into the bathroom and I answer the call. And he's like, well, now that we're officially over, I can tell you the truth. And I was like, the truth about what? He goes, I've never seen a therapist. I don't have any of these disorders that I told you that I did. I just did it to keep raping you. And I don't even know what to think at this point anymore. I am so angry and mostly at myself. I was so livid at myself because I believed all his bullshit. I believed all his lies. I believed his crying spells and staying up with him late at night as he's telling me about all this horrible abuse that he went through and getting me to feel sorry for him while he's hurting me and abusing me. And so something snapped at me, and I'm just like, I'm going to the police and I'm filing a police report. And so I had my boss watching my son, and I went to go to the police to file a police report. And they took me seriously because I showed them some text messages where he was admitting to assaulting me. Because I believe it was like three sets of messages. So I had showed them like some of the messages that had happened like the month before that were regarding the first assault, not this one.
Right.
And just that enough was for them to be like, okay, we should arrest this guy because he's openly talking about this stuff. And like, you're openly having a conversation about rape and he's not denying it.
Right.
So anyways, so they go and arrest him. I'm getting a rape kit done. I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do, whatever. We start doing the interviews with the detective, and the detective's like, I got to be honest with you. This is probably not going to be prosecuted. And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, because, he's bringing up your history of, BDSM. And I'm like, yeah, that's long over with. I mean, that was literally in the very beginning of our relationship. And this was not at all consensual. And she goes, yeah, I know, but it's a he said, she said. And I'm like, actually, it's not. And like, I start showing her all these messages I have where he's admitting to it. And she's just like, okay, well, I'm going to have the state's attorney review this. So they had my car because it was my car, because it was in my name, because I had the credit for it. He drove it. It was my car, though. So I was like, can I have my car back? So they give me back my car. And I go home, do a search through my car. And the time the kids are with me, everything's good. They had told me to go get an order of protection, because they said like that's all they could do for me was like go get an order of protection. So I got an emergency order of protection, and the judge even said if I don't grant this, I'd be afraid of what would happen to you. So I got the emergency order of protection. That was all good. Start cleaning out the car, and there's this hard drive in the car, and I've seen the hard drive before, but I was never curious about it because as far as I knew, like this man wasn't hiding anything big from me until the fact that he told me that he was making up disorders to assault me. So
Yes.
I'm curious at this point. So I take it in. I have some friends staying with me who eventually become my roommates because, I don't want to be alone in a house where this just happened to me, and they had released him at this point.
Right.
So we look at the hard drive on my friend's computer, and all of a sudden I start seeing this is folder titled LOL or LOLI, so lolly. And I click on the folder, and it's all these disgusting graphic images of animated children who are like 3-4 years old having sex with adults, and then 3-4 year olds having sex with 3 or 4 year olds, and it's like lesbian stuff, it's anal, it's oral, like it's the sickest possible thing that you could imagine for cartoons. So I call up the detective on my case. I'm like, I found this hard drive. This is what I saw on it. I understand that may not be illegal, but this is really concerning to me. We have 2 kids together. Like, do you want this hard drive? And she's like, yeah, I'll take the hard drive. So I told her, like, we viewed it on my friend's computer. Like, do you need the computer so you can backtrack anything you need to? Like, we're willing to give you whatever you need. And she's like, no, that's no problem. We don't need the computer. We'll just take the hard drive. So back to where I was. So I have this hearing for the plenary order protection now. So the plenary order protection would be for 2 years. So we go into court. All the messages are shown by my lawyer. Tom admits to sending all these messages saying that he's raped me, that he's admitted to sociopathy, that he's admitted to being a danger to our children. All this stuff he admits to. He even admitted to the assault itself, but then said that he admitted it because he wanted to break up with me. Well, the judge found that to be nonsense, because you don't rape someone to break up with them, especially when there's messages of me trying to break up with him repeatedly trying to leave him and telling him to get out and that I can't do this anymore and I don't want to be with him. And then there's messages of him saying, like, I love you, I care about you, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, please stay, like begging me constantly to stay. So I'm granted, everything seemed fine, like it was going in our favor. The lawyer wasn't even concerned. The only thing that was supposed to happen was set up for supervised visitation because they consolidated the case. So I get a call from my attorney that for whatever reason, they're not doing supervised visitation now. That's what was supposed to go on at that court date. She goes, because I was at work during this time, and she goes, I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on, Kara, but they're not doing supervised visitation. So he immediately starts off with like 4 days at 6 hours a day being with our children unsupervised when there hasn't even been a psych eval, and he's admitted to having all these issues and is an admitted rapist. It blew my freaking mind. So
And so when you think about it at this point, not there, but at this point, what do you think was happening? Do you think it was just so corrupt in the county that you were in that they just didn't care? Or do you think there
I
was something with his family, that there was some, odd connection to the
connections are
police?
money. Connections are money for sure. Because the way everything went down, it had to have been money or connections related. I haven't quite figured out where that's coming from yet, and I can't
Okay.
really state anything without knowing
Yeah.
for sure. But
Right.
yeah, it definitely, there had to have been some connection there.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Um,
thinking. It just seems so, like, it doesn't even make sense at
no,
all.
it doesn't. So my daughter comes back from her first unsupervised visit, or not unsupervised. Yeah, unsupervised. I'm sorry. So my daughter comes back from her first unsupervised visit with her father, and she's got this really large, like what looks to be a strap mark on her lower back, and it's really gray, and it's really like purple blue looking. And she had this yellow and gray bruise underneath her right butt cheek. She had little bruises on the back of her legs, and like these are not normal places for bruising on a child. Like it's not like she's got bruises on the front of her legs or on her arms. Like these are all really weird. And then she was saying like that grandpa had touched her, and my daughter had said before this had even started that like grandpa was hitting her, and like both the babysitter and myself had concerns. We were getting a child psychologist involved. We were trying to figure out which grandfather she was talking about. because we weren't, specific on that. She wasn't telling us more detail than just that. So we were basically just trying to figure out what was going on, asked Tom's permission to do a child psychologist, and told him to talk to his father if she was talking about his father. And he never talked to his father. So this was all even before the custody battle began, that there were legitimate concerns. So anyways, so I'm concerned at this point. Like, my daughter had already had a bruise, but it was nowhere near as bad, and it was just red. It was not gray, it was not purple, and it was not this exacerbated as it was now. And like the last bruise that she had said that grandpa hit her. Now she's saying the same thing, and it's even worse. So I called up my friend, and my friend was the babysitter. And I was like, look, I'm in this custody battle. I don't want to upset the apple cart here, but she's got all these bruises. She's saying that, her private area is hurting her, that her private area was touched. Like, what should I do here? And she's just like, just take her to the police and have them document the bruises. Like, don't ask for an investigation, just have them document everything. So me and my mom, because my mom was there at the time, and my mom was the one helping me out and doing the driving. And mind you, my daughter disclosed the exact same thing to my mother. Okay. We went to the police, and we told them about the fact that there's an investigation for the child porn for the hard drive, because that was still going on, because the detective had said that she found something concerning, and there was an investigation now into it. So that was going on. Then you have the fact that there's the review with the Kane County State's attorneys for the rape. And then you have all these pictures of bruising and my daughter complaining about her private area. So they said, based upon that, they wanted her to go to the hospital. So we go to Northwest Community Hospital. The doctor looks at her, doesn't have any concerns of sexual abuse, basically says like she can go. She had concerns about the bruising, so she wrote down contusion, domestic concerns, and told us we could go. So we're thinking, okay, there's a doctor telling us this. If she's saying this, then that's what we're going by. And the police are just like, we want you to get a rape kit done. We want you to get a rape kit done for your daughter. I'm like, no, why am I going to get that done? When this could be a UTI, this could just be irritation. And the doctor's saying she doesn't have any concerns. So why would I do that? And it's 4 a.m. at this point. So we go home. I go to work the next day. My roommates are watching my daughter. I'm with my son. I get this call from this Dr. Gregory at Children's Laurie's Hospital. And she's like, you need to come and have your daughter have a forensic kit done. And I'm like, why? The doctor told us that she didn't have any concerns about this and that it wasn't needed. And she goes, well, I've reviewed everything and I feel like it's needed. And like the earliest she could even see my daughter was Monday. And we were talking on a Friday. So, I mean, that in itself is 3 days and you're probably not going to find anything anyways. But I agreed to it and I said, okay, fine. So we hung up the phone and then she calls me back and she's like, never mind. I'm not going to have you come in because the DCFS said there's no investigation against grandfather. And I was like, well, that's just not true because a DCFS investigator came by and dropped off paperwork because she had called me when I'd already gotten home from my job and was at home, and the DCFS investigator had dropped off paperwork.
So was the hard drive investigation investigating your, like Tom, the gentleman that you have your children with, or was it his father that had the hard drive?
It was investigating Tom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there was an investigation into grandpa for Sasha's or my daughter stating that she was being hit and touched. So that was an ongoing investigation. So that's what I told the Children's Laurie's doctor, and she's just like, and her name was Dr. Gregory, and she's like, okay, I want you to come in still then. So I take my daughter in, and my daughter's behavior was super weird. Like, she grabbed the attendant's breast. She goes on to the the little bed thing they have that you lay down on. And she didn't even notice being anally swabbed, like no emotion, no sense that it even happened, like totally normal thing for her. Then they ask her to spread her legs. She doesn't spread her legs. She starts spreading her lips back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The doctor even goes, you need to stop. And she's like, still doing it. And
That's just not normal at all.
No, the doctor's like, please stop. And, she finally stops. So we go back. And then on top of all this, we have these recordings because I had cameras around my house after the order of protection was finalized to be safe. So my daughter is heard on these cameras talking about her dad hitting her brother in the face and talking about grandpa touching her, her private area specifically, and saying that he's hitting her. So we had this. So I go to my lawyer. I was like,
so sorry, I'm just clarifying. You have it on video that your daughter said this in your
yes,
house
yes,
when she didn't know she was being taped.
yes.
Okay.
And my mom was there as well. So there was a witness there to all this. So anyway, so I go to my lawyer and I was like, okay, I have this hospital paperwork saying contusions. I have this bizarre occurrence of how she's acting at children's lorries. I have this video of her even talking about these disclosures. There's a child porn investigation going on. There's a rape investigation going on of myself. There's admissions of rape. There's an order of protection. Like, what do you want to do? And she's like, we're doing an emergency motion. So we do an emergency motion. We put it in front of Judge Dalton. Judge Dalton's actually the same person who granted my order of protection. So Judge Dalton hears everything that's been stated, and he's like, well, she just can't be around her grandfather. And our emergency motion was to get me full custody and to have him have supervised visits, which is what should have happened in the beginning. And he's just like, nope, she just can't be around her grandfather. Well, the attorney pipes up and he's just like, and this is the attorney for Tom, and he goes, well, he lives with his dad. And the judge literally blew my mind again. He's just like, well, she can just go in another room then, or he can go in another room, referring to the grandfather.
Same house.
Yep.
That they live in, and this is perfectly fine. We're investigating, and we literally have seen enough evidence that we're going to look at this as an investigation, but we're going to let your daughter hang out there.
Yep, exactly.
As long as there's a door between them.
Yep. So I go to my lawyer and I was like, can you do this? Like, what can we do? And she's like, yes, he can, unfortunately. I go, you can't do anything about this? And she goes, no. And she just looks at me all sad. And then there's supposed to be an evidentiary hearing on May 2nd. So we get into May 2nd for this evidentiary hearing. They hired this shady GAL, and the GAL from day one was standoffish with me, was weird with me, not nice at all. Just, you know, when you could just tell someone's against you?
Yes,
That's how it felt.
So tell people what GAL is, because it's something about ad litem or guardian ad litem or something.
Yeah. It's a guardian ad litem, which basically is just a representative of the child.
Okay, but the reason that they do that is because you guys, isn't it a replacement? Like they're saying that neither one of you are okay at that point to do.
No, typically why they would insert a GAL is if there's an allegation of abuse.
So no matter what, whether it's parents that have, you know, nothing nefarious in their background or not.
Right.
Okay.
And a GAL is used also to make more money for the court because they just stay on a case forever and just keep making money. But anyways, like, so this woman, I could already tell there was something off about her. And I was honest with her. Like, I told her anything that she wanted to ask me. I was very polite with her. And what she did basically was we went into court on May 2nd, and she absolutely 100% railroaded me. She started talking about my hospitalization. She started talking about my sexual abuse as a child. Then she had Tom and his friend talking about my daughter, saying that my daughter is showing all these sexual behaviors and trying to blame my family member who my daughter had not even seen.
Wow, this sucks. This so sucks because from the judge's point of view, they have to look at everything. I mean, they, you know, like, because I mean, think about every day, all the people that use this against somebody or I don't know. They're just, wow, that just sucks.
And my lawyer is like trying to say something. The judge won't let my lawyer say anything. My lawyer is trying to show him the evidence at the hospital. The judge is ignoring that and is just listening to this GAL who's just literally spewing garbage out of her mouth and things that don't even matter to the case whatsoever and have absolutely nothing to do with my daughter. And it's just about making me out to be this crazy person who's projecting what happened to me as a child onto my kid, which wasn't the case at all. and not even mentioning the fact that my daughter had literally been disclosing abuse since way before the custody case, which is literally in writing.
Right.
So I'm just getting so pissed off at this point, and I just walk out. I literally could not take it anymore, because everybody has their trigger. And when somebody's sitting there in graphic detail talking about my childhood sexual abuse, and then also at the same time sitting there trying to make me out to be this crazy person who's convincing my child that they're being abused, like, no, that's not okay.
No,
Like,
I mean, and I get it. And what's so ironic is it plays well to them in court when the mother gets emotional because she's snapping because she's mother bearing and like really taking care of trying to get the truth across and frustrated and storming out. Well, then they're like, oh, we'll see what we're dealing with. I mean, it just plays right into their hand, and it just, my heart breaks for you.
yeah, like, I hate this woman so much, you have no idea. And you'll find out later why I hate her so much. But that was the first moment where I'm like, what an evil piece of garbage you are. Like, that to do that to another person is just sickening. Like, using their trauma like that against them to elicit an emotional reaction that's
Yes.
in their favor is just sickening. So
No, it is. As a matter of fact, somebody on the chat just said it sucks because they have worked so many cases with really messed up people that they look at all of us like we're messed up.
Oh yeah. So I walked out, and my lawyer comes after me, and she's like, you know what? I want you to just fire me. And I was like, why? And she's like, because, the judge isn't looking at my evidence. I don't know what to do anymore. It doesn't seem like anything's working on this case. And she's like, I just want you to fire me. I was like, well, I'm not going to fire you, because if I fire you, then I have nobody. And like, this is already not going well for me. So why would I fire my attorney? So I told her no at that point, but then she calls me a week later, and she's like, if you want me to continue being on this case, you have to pay me $1,000 a month. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm not paying you $1,000 a month. I'm a single mom. I'm a CNA. I don't have that kind of money. So I told her, like, no, I can't keep you then. You're going to have to withdraw. So we had this arrangement for her to withdraw on May 15th. And that was all that was supposed to be done on May 15th, was her withdraw.
Right.
So I'm at work. My roommates are watching my daughter. I'm with my son. And my roommates called me, and they're like, cops are here to take your kids. I'm like, what? There's cops here. They have an order signed by Julie, which was the GAL, Julie Pirtle, and Judge Dalton, that Tom is getting temporary custody. I'm like, what?
Whoa.
And these are the same Elgin cops that like were all involved in my rape case and everything. And like, one of the cops was involved.
Did any of the police officers seem contrite or like feel bad or give you any?
Yes, I'm getting there. So one of the
Okay.
cops was actually on one of my violation of order protection cases. And this was when Tom like openly threatened me that he would expose me and my family after I have an order protection against him in a police station. Just screamed it. Even his friend even verified that's what he said. So that's definitely a violation, and nothing was done. And the police officer actually worked really hard to try to get that to be a case.
Yeah.
So he gets on the phone with me, and I'm like freaking out. He goes, Carol, you need to calm down. Like, I don't know what's going on. None of us know why this is happening. I'm going to call the FBI on your behalf. Like, we don't get it. Because they all know like all the shit I've been through. They know about the rape. They know about the admissions. Like, they all know about this. So like, look, you just, we get it. We know you're freaking out. You're upset. Like, but you have to just give your kids over. Like, otherwise we can arrest you. Like, we don't want to have to do that. So I'm like, well, look, you're calling me while I'm at work. I'm literally doing a live-in. I can get off at 8. I can be, or no, what did I say? I think it was either 7 or 8. I was like, I can get there by 7 or 8, and I can hand my kids over then. But I literally cannot leave until I have somebody who can cover my shift, because I'm a CNA for a client that's, has nobody right now. And they're like, okay, that's fine. So clearly I'm not a danger to myself or my children if you're giving me till 8 o'clock to turn over my kids.
Right.
So Tom and his stupid family come over to pick up my kids. And I'm like totally calm about it, not screaming, not throwing a fit, not doing anything. I just hand over my children. Pissed off as all hell. But
I can't, I literally can't even fathom it. So I don't even know what I would do. That's just like, horrible.
I danced with them. I played with them. I packed a bag for them both. And then I sent them, and I acted like they were just going to see their dads. Like, that wasn't the last time I was going to see them.
And
So
so, how
anyway,
come Tom and his parents take him? Why wouldn't the police do it?
yeah, I didn't get that either. I thought that was strange. I mean, the police were there during it, but his family was also there. It should have just been the police and then having them give him the kids to Tom. But I think maybe they thought that was easier, more beneficial for the kids.
For the
I don't know.
kids? Yeah, I don't. Okay.
But so anyway, so my lawyer, withdrew at this point. So I don't have an attorney. So they're supposed to give you like 30 days to get a new attorney. And they didn't care. They just kept acting like the case was going on, ignoring any rights I had. They stripped my parental rights without justification. So I had no medical rights. I had no parental rights. And then they make my babysitter, that my best friend, who I had hired as a babysitter, to be my court supervisor. And they didn't even ask her. They just tell her, this is what you have to do. Made absolutely no sense. And that was Julie's decision on doing that. So she makes her the court supervisor. And, I'm only able to see my kids twice a week, like 4 hours at a time, because they made one of the days a work day, which I didn't have a replacement for my client. So I couldn't do it. I could only do Tuesday and Wednesday. So every single time my kids are with me and the court supervisor, they've got bruises. My daughter is making disclosures. Like, I've got her with a busted lip. I had her with a partial black eye. She's talking about grandpa touching her. She's talking about mommy and daddy finger going inside of her. Like, all these really messed up things. And the court supervisor is just disgusted and appalled at everything that's going on. And is just writing to the GAL and sending her letters, and GAL's not listening. So she's calling DCFS, and DCFS isn't listening, and no one's listening, even though my kids keep showing up with bruises and having problems. And there's still a freaking child pornography investigation going on top of a rape investigation. No one's paying attention or caring. So we get to August.
How did the hard drive go from being a cartoon pornography of children tortures or whatever you want to call it to being an investigation for other children, actual children?
So that's actually the point I'm getting to.
Okay.
So August, I get this message on our family wizard, and my ex is like, James is in the hospital. I'm like, okay, why is James in the hospital? What's going on? And he's like, oh, he's in the hospital for a prolapse rectum. And like, in first, I'm not that concerned about that. Like, okay, like, are you potty training him? Like, what's going on? But then he tells me, like, my son's been there for 3 days. And I'm like, why in the world is my son staying overnight for a prolapse rectum when this is something that you literally put a glove on and push back in, or it's something that goes back in on its own? So I call the nurses because I'm a CNA. I have experience with this issue. So I'm calling the nurses trying to figure out what's going on. And they're like,
And
yeah,
they won't let you in the hospital?
not at that point. So I'm calling the nurses, asking what's going on. I go, what is going on with my son? They're like, it just keeps popping out. It will not stay inside. Like, we've done surgical procedures and it keeps popping out. And the nurse told me, like, it's popped out 3 times today. I go, okay, I need to get off the phone with you and I need to see my son. So I called Julie and I'm like, I need to go see my son. And I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm going to see my son. And so my boss actually volunteers to take me to go see my son, because me and my boss were like pretty close. So she picks me up and we're on the way. And all of a sudden Tom messages me, oh, the GAL said only the court supervisor can take you. I go, I don't care what the GAL said. I said, I'm seeing my son and no one is stopping me from seeing my son. And my court supervisor is not available. So I will come and see my son, and I will also show them the fact that I have an order of protection against you. So I go there and I show them the order of protection. I tell them everything that's going on. I tell them, like, I need to see my son and that he's sick. And they're like, okay, well, the head of our pediatric department is going to supervise you. Think about this for a second. The head of the pediatric department at St. Alexius is willing to drop every single thing she's got going on for 30 minutes to watch me with my son. Tell me there's not money involved.
Something's weird.
That's unbelievable, because those people have way too much to do to just drop everything like that. So she's like watching me with my son. My son apparently just had an enema. I already see on the board that my son's supposed to stay yet another day because they got breakfast all lined up for my son. And she's just like, she goes, yeah, he's supposed to stay again. And I go, what's going on? And she said, she's telling me the same stuff, that it keeps popping out. They can't get to stay in, that he keeps prolapsing no matter what they do. And like my son's bottom is literally taped shut. He's playing with me. He seems like he's in pain, but he's happy to see me. And after 30 minutes, they're like, okay, you need to leave now. So I'm on my way. I'm walking out. And Tom's like, I want you to see the social worker before you leave. And I'm like, why? And at this point, the only thing I had accused him of is neglect.
Right.
I didn't say anything about abuse. And he's like, because you're probably going to say I abused him. And I was like, literally none of that ever came out of my mouth.
Right.
He goes, well, I just want you to see the social worker anyways. And I go, okay, fine, whatever. So I go and talk to the social worker. And I was like, did you call DCFS? And she's like, why would I call DCFS? I go, because this is obvious neglect. Like, how else do you explain this? He's been here for 3 days for a prolapse rectum. Like, this is not normal for a 1.5-year-old.
I was just going to ask how old he was at this point. Thank you.
You guys can't fix the problem. And she's like, well, I see no reason to call DCFS. I was like, okay. And I go, do you understand that there's a child pornography investigation? Do you understand that this man admitted raping me? Do you understand that I have an order of protection because this man admitted to raping me? And she's just like, are you telling me how to do my job? And at that point, I was just like, you know what? I'm done. So I walked away.
Yeah, you're not going to get help from someone like that. Wow.
So I walked away from her. And my boss is just like, you need to call DCFS. I'm like, no, I'm not going to call DCFS because they don't do anything. They make things worse. They don't seem to know what they're doing. And they are complete failures. And she's like, well, I'm going to call them. So she calls them and she tells them everything that's going on. Within an hour, literally within an hour, my son is emergency discharged from the hospital. And I'm just like, why is my son being discharged when he keeps prolapsing? Because legally, you cannot do that. He has to go 24 hours without a prolapse before being released.
Right.
So he should have never been released from the hospital. So my ex is just like, Tom is like, okay, do you want me to give you the kids tomorrow for your supervised parenting time? I'm like, yes, of course. If James is feeling up to it, yes. So he takes the kids to see me. I'm with my son. I have to change my son's diaper. My daughter comes over and holds my son's hand as I'm changing his diaper. And this is something she's never done before. And when I'm changing his diaper, I can literally see his anus pulsating. And it's so wide around and it's just pulsating. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? That could be because of, whatever they were doing in the hospital, treating him. I don't know. And I'm like, I'm trying not to think the worst here. And my daughter starts tugging on me that she's got to go to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom with my daughter. Court supervisor literally has to watch every single thing I do. So the door is open a crack. Court supervisor is with my son after I'm finished changing him. I'm in the bathroom with my daughter. My daughter's like, someone hurt James. And I was like, who hurt James? And she goes, Grandpa put a toothbrush in his butt and had me take it out. And she goes, he was screaming and crying. So I tried to carry him off the bed, but Grandpa pushed me down. And she said this with no emotion, completely flat. Like she was acting like she was talking about eating breakfast. It was the strangest thing. And I'm just like looking at her in total disbelief. Like, what the heck did I just hear? And the court supervisor heard it because the door's open. So she contacts the GAL immediately and tells her what my daughter said. And GAL's like, well, the DCFS is already dealing with this. And like the GAL doesn't seem to give a crap at all about what is going on here and what my 3-year-old just disclosed. So DCFS calls me and they're like, do you have anything to add to what we're already investigating? And I told them like what my daughter said. And they're just like, oh, okay. And then they hang up the phone. So Tom comes and picks up the kids for his visitation. And then he sends me this message. He goes, DCFS is taking the kids into their custody. I'm not allowed to know where they are. You're not allowed to know where they are. And I was like, well, DCFS didn't tell me this. I didn't get a call from DCFS. Like, what's going on here? And he's just like, they'll be calling you later. I literally did not get a call until 9 o'clock at night from a caseworker. And when I talked to her, I go, what is going on? Why are you taking my kids? And she's like, this is all your fault. You know, this is what you keep doing. You're causing all these problems. So now the kids are being taken. I go, who do you think you are? She goes, I'm DCFS. I'm like, okay. And then she just hangs up on me. So at this point, I'm like, this is very odd. So I'm calling around trying to figure out if there's an investigation into me. Because if there's not an investigation into me, I would not be being denied parenting time. So I'm calling. I called Elgin. I called Rolling Meadows. I called Palatine. I called everywhere. And they're like, no, there's no investigation being done on you with DCFS. And I'm like, okay, well, at this point, I'm reporting my kids missing because this doesn't make sense. This caseworker, who I don't even know if she's a real caseworker, called me at 9 o'clock at night, gave me absolutely no information. But yet every DCFS place I call is saying there's no investigation into me. And I have court ordered parenting time. So I go to the Palatine Police and I'm like, I need to know that there's actually a safety plan here. I need to see the paperwork. I've never signed off on anything. Like, I need to know what's going on. They're like, oh, there is a safety plan. You're just not allowed to see it. I go, that's not how this works. I have to be shown the safety plan. That is my legal right as a parent to see it as long as I still have visitation with my children. So anyways, they're like, no, we don't have to show you anything. And, you know, I reported both of my kids missing. They refused to take the report saying they knew where the kids were. I told them like I was not leaving without at least having paperwork, making sure they were safe. And I ended up having to leave anyways. Shortly after that, we went to court. And in court, they're trying to say that the only way I can have parenting time now is if I'm supervised by a professional and I have to pay for it. And they were trying to get me to pay $900 for a month to see my kids. And it
Do
was
you
like,
think that some of the end game is them doing this where they can just keep charging people for things?
well, in some cases, but not specifically in this case. I already
Okay.
know they were trying to do this.
Okay.
So I'm basically saying, like, I'm not doing this because one of the reasons why they try to have you do this, the supervised parenting time, is because they don't have anything saying you're a danger. But if you admit yourself that you need supervision, then you're directly stating that you're a danger to your children.
They're such snakes.
And I would not do it. I said, absolutely not. Like, I was looking at the long game and not the short game. So I said, no, I'm not doing this. And as much as they kept asking me to, I wouldn't do it. So now we get into the child pornography portion.
Right.
So I'm seeing my domestic violence specialist, who she was a therapist at the Elgin Police Department. And I start talking to her about like everything that's going on. And she starts getting like really concerned and she's believing like what I'm saying. And she has access to the actual police reports because she works there. So she goes, have you looked at these police reports? I was like, no, I didn't know you could do that. She goes, yes, there's something called the Freedom of Information Act where you FOIA the reports and you can see them. She goes, I'm not allowed to give them to you, but I can read them to you. And one of the ones she chose to read to me and then have me FOIA for myself was the child pornography. And she goes, they found over 700 real kids on this hard drive. It was 47 identified by the National Center for Missing Exploited Children. It was
Whoa.
Yeah, it was.
Thank God you found that thing in the back of your car.
Yep, it was 422 kids were recognized by the National Center for Missing Exploited Children. And then it was 280, I want to say, that were unrecognized, that were completely new victims that no one even knew about.
Wow.
So now I have this information and I'm trying to FOIA this report. And this woman is like, this is now the records lady. She's like, oh, this doesn't exist. There's no report on this. I go, please help me. Like, I am begging you as a mother to help me on this. I need to know. I need to see this. And finally she did it. And I've never heard from that woman again. So I'm assuming she lost her job for doing it, but she made the right decision.
Well,
So,
aren't you supposed to be able to have access to it or no?
yes,
Okay,
this was something that they were hiding for
got it.
obvious reasons. So the next time I go into court, I'm like, okay, well, there's real kids on this hard drive. And I'm like listing out specifically the, how many children, the graphic details of the hard drive. And the judge is just ignoring it completely, like, doesn't care, not listening to it. Not listening to me, not listening to the admissions of rape, just talking over me. And in addition to my therapist providing that for me, she goes, "What's up with that Julie Pirtle lady?" And I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Is she like, does she have an issue?" I go, "I don't understand what you mean by like an issue." She goes, she kind of was basically asking me if she was mentally ill.
Oh,
Um, and I go, "Why do you think that?" She goes, um, because the things that she's saying do not make any sense to me. And I go, "Well, what is she saying to you?" She goes, "She was trying to tell me that you're gonna murder your kids." I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah." And then when I asked her what evidence that she had, she was silent. So this woman is trying to persuade my therapist that I'm going to murder my children, but has absolutely no evidence to state why she would think this.
yeah.
And then she even was like, you know, "Are they
That's
involved?"
crazy. It's almost like it's their plan, and she's exposing it.
Well, she asked me point blank. She goes like, "Are Tom and her involved?" Because the way she was protecting him and
Yeah.
the way she was talking about him on the phone was excusing every single thing he's ever done and is acting as if he is just this guiding light. And it was just very odd to her. She had never experienced anything so uh, confusing. So
Yeah.
she literally wrote up a report saying all this and documenting the conversation because she was just like so disgusted by it. And I actually have that letter to this day that has documented all of that. So
Oh,
that's another
that's
thing.
good.
Yeah, so that was another thing that I brought to court with me, and it didn't matter. They kept ignoring me. I would ask for an evidentiary hearing. They wouldn't listen. So we're now going on 3 months where have not seen either of my kids for absolutely no reason,
Oh my
none
God.
whatsoever, other than just false allegations of parental alienation,
And you're
which they
not the
were
only
never.
one. This is happening to a lot of people now. Your case is extreme as far as the outcome, but this is like happening in a lot of places. It's absolutely frightening, and I really want to put a little exclamation point there because I want anyone that listens to this either today or in the future to really try to participate in making people aware of this is real. This is happening to real people that are normal, that are having, horrible things said about them, circumstances being changed, things being ignored. This is happening. And so at the end, and I'm going to say it again because I know sometimes people hop on later, again, I met Kara through Madison. Today's our first time ever talking. Madison was supposed to be here with us. And one of the things that Madison really wants is for Kara's case to get a lot of eyes on it. So if you guys could share it, it would be great. And also, I am going to put in the description box where you can find the petition to that she's got over 25,000 people. So sorry for the interruption, but I just wanted to kind of bring everybody up to speed again in case, some new people were on. And then we have the worst yet to come, y'all. I mean, I know some of you are just ready to blow up. I know some of you are mad. This gets worse. All right, Kara, you have the floor again.
So October 31st, 2019, I'm at work at my overnight and I get a phone call from a doctor. And I don't remember his name, but he called me and he's like, "Is this Kara Witkowski?" I was like, "Yes." He goes, "I need you to come to the hospital." And he said Northwest Community Hospital. I was like, "Why?" He goes, "Your son is very sick." And I'm already like thinking the worst because I wasn't even allowed to see my son without a supervisor. And now all of a sudden I can just come see my son. And I was just like, well, you know, I've got this client. Can I come tomorrow morning first thing? And he's like, no, you need to come now. So I get off the phone with him. I literally take an Uber from Yorkville to Palatine to get there like in an hour. It still took an hour. I met my mom there, and this lady comes up to us, and I go, I need to see my son. I need to see James. Like, please take me to my son. And she leads me into this room, and there's nobody there. There's nothing there, and I just start screaming. I go, where is my son? I need to see my son. And she goes, she looks down and she shakes her head, and the doctor comes out, and he looks down at the floor and he starts shaking his head, and he's just like, I'm sorry, he didn't make it. And I was like, what do you mean he didn't make it? Like, there was nothing wrong with him. He had a prolapsed rectum, but I was told that was fixed, because that's all people kept telling me, was that it had been fixed, that it had been corrected, that there was no issue. And because I wasn't able to see my kids, I didn't know anything other than that. So I'm just like, I need to see my son. And he brings out my son to me, and my son literally still felt warm. And I'm just holding my son and just looking at this beautiful, beautiful boy that was my everything, that is now lifeless and in my arms. And the cops come in, and I'm screaming at the cops because, you know, they could have done something. They could have prevented this. Like, so many people could have stopped this, and they're just looking down, and they're red faced. They don't even know what to say to me. They're just staring at me. And I'm just holding my son, and I'm sitting with my son, and I start really looking at my son, and there's these red markings all over his stomach. And I asked the nurse, I go, what is this? And she goes, that's just what happens when someone dies. Well, it's not. I've seen what rigor mortis looks like. That was not rigor mortis. Almost looked like handprints of red all over my son's stomach. So right after I asked this question, coincidentally, she says that I need to leave. My mother needs to leave, that we need to get out, and that we can't see my son anymore. And like, we had walked out for a second so I could get air, because I literally felt like I could not breathe.
I can't.
And when we came back, that's when she was telling us, like, we need to get out. And I was like, my grandmother's literally on her way to see my son. Can we stay till then? And she's like, no, we have this expert that's going to see him, and that's going to do the autopsy. And that turned out to be a joke and a half as well.
It all sounds so shady. It all sounds like all the stuff that Jesse Zaboters talks about with all of the satanic ritual abuse, or, you know, it just, there's so many shady pieces. And it seems like you happened upon not just a network of evil, but like an actual nest of organized evil.
Oh, definitely organized evil. But so I immediately am asking, like, where's my daughter? I need to see my daughter. Like, all I'm thinking about is my daughter, like, and if she's safe. So we do an emergency motion and take it to court for me to get my daughter back. And this is literally 3 days after. And the judge, coincidentally, Judge Dalton, had stepped down October 10th, which is really shady to me, because that's the 2 weeks before my son died. And then the GAL stepped down and asked to be taken off the case on the 25th or the 26th, which was either 5 or 6 days before my son died. So it seems to me like everyone knew what was going to happen and didn't want to be responsible for when it took place.
Well, and so just all of the stuff that Jesse said, I want to just rewind and verify something. You said October 31st, didn't you?
Yes.
And you know that that's a satanic ritual time.
Yeah, I am aware of that.
That's just wild.
It's disturbing.
It is very disturbing.
A lot of people have highlighted that it's odd that this occurred on Halloween. But so we go into court, and the judge now is Judge Cruz, and Judge Cruz was the most heartless, disgusting judge other than Dalton that I'd ever come in contact with. He's literally like, oh yeah, your son may have died, but that doesn't excuse your behavior on social media, and I'm still not going to let you see your daughter, and unless you agree to supervise visits, and just like awful garbage man of a human being. And at that time, there was literally a DCFS involvement, so there was no real custody to anyone because DCFS had his mom with guardianship. So the fact that they weren't even letting my daughter see me after my son had just died is one of the most sickest things that I
It's
can think of doing to someone.
detestable, foul, disgusting, horrendous.
So I
I feel
actually,
like really ill-equipped to do this, because I usually feel like I do a good job of. I don't even know what to say, Kara. Like I really don't. I'm so sorry.
so I actually got an attorney that would represent me and help me out because I was basically blackballed. Like nobody would take this case, and nobody would take it because it was so utterly corrupt and messed up of a case, and they all knew I should have never had my kids taken from me.
Right.
So the whole point was, let's just keep her without a lawyer so we can keep doing whatever we want because we've made such a mess of this. So this attorney took my case. She was very nice, and she's just like, this is literally inhumane. You need to let her see her daughter. So they agreed to let me see my daughter with my mother as a supervisor, which made absolutely no sense because they were sitting there saying that my mother was coaching me and that my mother was a problem and my mother was coaching my daughter. So like all these things they were saying about my mother, they were saying about me, and yet they're having my mom supervise me with my daughter. It made absolutely no sense. So it was
Right.
literally like
Well,
a
none of it
week.
does.
No, it was literally like a week of supervised visits. And then they were doing overnights with me. There was no GAL investigation, there was no 604B, absolutely nothing. It was literally like, okay, now you can just have her. So I'm with my daughter, and I have these visits that are now unsupervised, where I'm getting her 3.5 days, and he's getting her 3.5 days, but he's getting her with his mom overseeing everything as a guardian, and I have no supervision at all. So at this point, custody should have been given to me, considering he's still having to be watched by DCFS just to see his daughter. That's how things should have been, but they were not. So they're trying to tell me that, oh, we don't know how your son died. There's no foul play, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I'm not believing it. That's
Mm-mm.
absolute garbage. I don't believe it for a second. I hire my own person. They literally had Judge Cruz do the order, which made no sense because the only judge that can do death um, orders and things that happen after death is a probate judge. So Judge Cruz, who's a family court judge, should have had nothing to do with anything that happened after my son's death, and was still acting as if he held possession over my child that had just passed away. So he was basically saying, oh, you can do your independent autopsy, but you can only do it this way. And, it has to be, basically they made me go through Cook County and had Cook County go to a funeral home. And the only funeral home that accepted my son, and this was also coincidental, was a funeral home that had somebody from the Cook County Medical Examiner Board as their funeral director.
I already knew where you were going because this whole thing is so messed up.
So
Wow.
my examiner does her autopsy, and she calls me, and I actually have this call recorded, and she's just like, I just have a couple questions for you. And I was like, yeah, sure. She goes, did they tell you that they were going to remove his organs? I was like, what do you mean? She goes, he doesn't have his brain, he doesn't have his heart, and he doesn't have any of his neck organs, including the hyoid bone. She goes, I can understand the brain and the heart for further testing, but even then they should have told me so I could examine those. But the neck organs, you never take those out. So I'm
What
like,
the hell?
no, they didn't tell me any of that. And then she told me she had preliminary concerns of suffocation in regarding my son because he had bruising around his mouth and his nose, which is indicative of suffocation. Now, suffocation is very hard to prove. because there's not a lot of forensics that go into the diagnosis of suffocation. So it really relies on the police analysis and interviews and how they do their investigation. And the police did absolutely no investigation. I mean, literally not even 24 hours after my son passed away, they said no foul play, which is unheard of, especially given my son was found on an adult bed. His lips were blue. He was bleeding and foaming from his nose and his mouth. Like, and there was a basket, there was of bloody tissues. And they didn't even test the DNA of those bloody tissues, because apparently the grandfather said they were from shaving, and they just took him at his word for it. So anyway, so she's telling me all this, and I'm getting like really concerned, and I'm telling my lawyer all this too. I'm like, she's got these concerns of suffocation. We need to go to court. Something needs to be done here. We need to figure this out. So we go into court, still being ignored. Custody is not changing. Nothing is changing. We now have this evidence of preliminary suffocation. It's being completely ignored by the police. I even have a certified letter from the police stating that my forensic pathologist never gave them her preliminary findings, when she in fact did, and documented that she gave them to them, and they just ignored it. So she still is not able to see the organs. Finally, almost a year later, she's able to see the organs. And they make her go to them, to the Cook County Medical Examiner's office, to view these organs. So no one even knows if these are actually my son's organs.
I was just going to say, why would they even keep organs? I mean, this whole thing is just so shady.
Yeah. So no one knows if these are actually my son's organs. They wouldn't allow DNA testing. They wouldn't do any sort of, just certification to show that these are my son's organs. They could have literally been anyone's. So she's examining the neck organs of my son. She's examining the heart and the brain. If it was my son, who knows at this point. So she sends me the autopsy report, and she's like, this is a cervical spinal cord injury. He died from a cervical spinal cord injury. So I now have this evidence, and I now have a new attorney. I let my attorney know, like, this is a cervical spinal cord injury. We need further investigation. That's what it states in her report, that the police need to do further investigation, that DCFS needs to do further investigation. They didn't like that. They literally just said unfounded. Here is a forensic pathologist telling you need to investigate a cervical spinal cord injury of a 2-year-old, and you're just sitting there saying unfounded. They just wanted it to all go away. And they thought it would go all the way, and it didn't. So once after that happened with the cervical spinal cord injury, and that I was able to prove it, the attorney for my ex starts pressuring me. It is just like, we want you to do 50-50 custody. We want you to do 50-50 custody. And I'm assuming they were trying to do that so that it get all nice, cleaned up, and in a bow. And I'm just denying, like, absolutely not doing it. Don't want it. Don't want anything to do with it. My son was killed, and that's what this autopsy shows. That's what evidence shows. I am not settling for anything less than full custody of my daughter at this point. So they keep, threatening me with this 50-50 custody and trying to force me into it. And then finally, it gets to be the point where the judge is threatening to send me to jail for speaking out online because of how large my movement had become. So he was trying to use a gag order that was put on me on August. And you remember what happened in August. In August,
but what's their reasoning? Like, why can't you talk about it? Why do you have a gag order that you can't speak about your son?
They didn't want me to speak about the case in general because it was so corrupt. So they're saying basically like, oh, we're going to use this gag order from August order to enforce now. And if you do not agree to 50-50 custody, we are going to put you in jail without jury or trial for up to 6 months. And at that point, I would have lost my daughter. So I agreed to the 50-50 custody because I literally had no other option. So after agreeing to the 50-50 custody, I was like, well, you know what? There's a silver lining in this. I can now get all the medical records from my son, because before the order said that only Tom could provide me with medical records. So Tom was picking and choosing what he wanted to send me. So
it is so backwards.
So I actually get the medical records, and there's literally over 500 pages of medical records. Like, they had lied about absolutely everything. My son had been hospitalized 9 times. His prolapsed rectum had become incarcerated. He was dying from it. He was high risk for morbidity, mortality, and complications on August 13th.
So that whole time you couldn't see him from August to October. You think he was in the hospital all those times? Nine
Oh,
times?
yeah, he was. He was. So in addition to that, he had to have an emergency rectal repair surgery. In addition to that, a child protection specialist from Children's Lorries looked at my son and said that she had concerns of anal penetrative sexual abuse. And nothing was ever said in court. Nothing was ever put on the GL report. So my son was literally dying from being raped. And it's in writing. And it's in the medical records. And no one did a damn thing. They called DCFS multiple times. There was 8 mandated reporters who called DCFS. Mandated reporters are teachers, nurses, doctors, medical professionals, etc. My son literally had no anal tone. He went from having anal tone to absolutely none. That's why the rectum would not stay in place.
Wow.
So all this it was going on. And so,
Chicago's so corrupt. It's so much worse than I thought. I remember hearing about, like I was saying earlier, the difference between a nest and a network. And there's these nests where everyone knows everyone and they're all covering for each other. And like when they have to take them down, they take down, anywhere between 20 and 70 of them. It just depends on where it is in the world. But it sounds like you stepped in a nest.
Well, even the rectal repair surgery they did was unsuccessful. He was hemorrhaging even after the rectal repair surgery. That's how damaged he was. So after that, they kept trying to do the sclerotherapy, which is this type of therapy where you basically insert a needle into either the spine or the perineum of a child or an adult, whoever it may be, and that's supposed to help create tone and whatever. And that wasn't working either. He was literally having treatments every day that were doing nothing for him.
Wow.
And the last known hospitalization for my son was October 17th. So he's still having issues. October 17th. Remember, he passed away October 31st.
Yeah.
And I have told this to the police, I don't know how many times, and they're still like, there are 2 separate issues, Kara. The assault is separate from the death. No, I really don't think they are.
Right.
Not with that little bit of time between the 2. I don't know yet how they're connected.
Right.
But I am willing to bet my life that they are.
Yes.
Because especially with how they hit it, especially how everyone was stepping down. Like, I know these people had an inkling that my son was going to die, especially given August 13th, it stated he had a high risk of morbidity and mortality, and that was even with surgery. So he was that sick.
Yeah.
And everyone knew it. And the reason why they tried to have me do supervise with a professional was to hide it, because I wouldn't be able to change my son's diaper. I wouldn't be able to look at my son. And his lawyer was literally dumb enough to admit this in transcripts, that he didn't want me looking at my son's bottom. So, all the pieces started coming together once I got those medical records.
Wow.
And I'm still in this horrible situation.
You are. And it's multidimensional, because I believe that you're dealing with more than the flesh here, like way more than the flesh. Like I almost feel like you need an entire army of prayer and intercessory. You need, wow. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry. Like I am not qualified to do this. You are amazing, and God selected you for a reason. He knew that you wouldn't give up on your daughter, and she has to be the reason that many of us do something about this. People that live in Chicago could help you. You know, how can people help you other than signing the petition?
Just keep spreading the story. I mean, we've already had a lot of accomplishments. Julie Pirtle is removed from Kane County as a GAL. So
Good.
she is permanently removed. She's unable to be a GAL anymore. Um, Judge Dalton was removed from family court. Judge Cruz was removed from family court. Commander Bratcher supposedly retired, which doesn't make any sense because he was in his 40s, early 50s. His father was literally the chief of police during the Brown's chicken murder, so this man could have easily become the chief of police, but yet he just retired. This was the same person who signed the certified letter saying he never received the preliminary findings for the autopsy. John Walsh, who was the original person who did the autopsy, which I have a recorded call with him as well, basically stating he didn't know any policies, he didn't know any procedures, that medical records don't matter when you're doing an autopsy. This was the best when he tried to tell me that my son's neck organs were put back. And I was like, no, they weren't. And I know that for a fact. And he goes, well, which neck organs are you looking for? And I was like, all of them.
So shady. Yeah,
All
right.
So he's gone too. There's been a pretty large body count of people that have just straight up disappeared. Not only that, but there's no GAL on this case, which is bizarre. There's no 604B evaluator on this case, which is bizarre. The only thing that we have is a mediator, even though my daughter is still disclosing to people, including a forensic interviewer, the police, a nurse, a social worker, and pretty much any professional who would listen to her, that she's being sexually abused. There's no professional that's willing to take on the case or do anything about it. So
Wow.
it's just it's all very shady, because that's not at all how it would typically go. I mean, how it typically goes is you would put a GAL or a 604B evaluator on a case to determine what's going on. And yet it almost seems like everybody, my attorney and his attorney, is doing everything they can to not go into court.
Right.
And to keep it out of the public eye and to keep it out of court records is what it appears to me to be. But everyone is very well aware of this case. Like, all the Kane County lawyers know, most of the judges know about this case. I mean, it's pretty much rocked Kane County in addition to Cook County. And the name James Ryker Biel is widely known. And that's another thing that I tried so hard to do, was to just get this out to as many people as I can. And there's people that tell me, like, they're rooting for me, and they're professionals that are rooting for me and want justice for my son and want there to be change. I mean, there's literally a child rapist right now who raped a 1.5-year-old walking around and is free to do this to any other child. You have to be a really sick, demented,
Evil,
messed up individual,
demonic. Yes.
to do that to a 1.5-year-old, and then have a 3-year-old watch you do it and make the 3-year-old pull out the object. And I understand that they messed up so bad on this case and they don't want to take any responsibility for it. I get all that. But at the same time, you are endangering
So
many children, so many other people.
Yeah.
By not putting this man away where he belongs forever.
Yes. Well, and this is why Madison and Claire have started the Humanity Voices. How did you meet Madison?
Honestly,
Or how did you two connect?
So somebody saw my story on Unmasked. I want to say it was Unmasked, or it was my petition. I cannot remember which it was.
Okay.
You need to see this. You need to hear about this. This is an absolutely, like, unbelievable story, and I feel like this is something that would resonate with you. And basically just tagged her and had her reach out to me. And then I spoke personally with Madison, and I told her a little bit about what happened to me, and she told me a little bit about what went on in her life, and we really connected on that level. And she was basically like, I want to do anything I can help you. I want to get this out to as much media as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Like, we need to save your daughter. And it's really all about my daughter right now. She needs,
Do you feel like you have a powerhouse lawyer?
I really do like my attorney. I think he's great. But I also know that this is a very touchy case
Yes.
because an attorney can only do so much
Yeah.
without um, ruffling feathers.
Right. And the whole piece that it ruffles feathers is the piece that we're fighting on every level around the world. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. And I just noticed that Michael Jaco is in the chat. And he said the only way you defeat this is to come in with more powerful forces than they have. And so um, that was right along with what I was thinking. Yeah, to have, do you have any personal friends that are judges, or do you know people that can connect you to good people within the system?
I cannot disclose who I have right now, but
Yeah,
I definitely have someone very powerful
good.
with a lot of connections who believes in what I've been through and what my daughter has been through, and wants to help.
Yes. Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you have so much proof. You have so many documents. You have pages and pages. You have
The
been,
medical records are the most damning because
yeah,
I have shown them to nurse practitioners, pediatricians, and they all just look at them like, never in my 30 years of medicine have I seen something like this.
yeah. To yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, honest to gosh, I've heard a lot of stories, and I've sat here with a lot of things that people have shared. This one is especially raw. I think when I'm talking to a lot of the satanic ritual abuse victims, it's from so long ago. This is so right now, and it rips my heart out. But also, you're so young. Most kids your age are busy partying, and you now know how the entire legal system works, and I don't know how many counties. And so, you need support. Do you feel like you're getting the answers that you need, or the enough people around you? Do you have the money to pay for, I know you said you have a GoFundMe for that. Like, where are you on that? Can you give us some updates on specific ways to act?
Um, Money is definitely very important when you're trying to fight a battle like this because of the need for resources. Petitions cost money, going to court costs money. And if I'm going to fight this, I have to fight it the right way and I have to fight it legally.
Mhm.
And if you want to fight something legally, that's going to require a lot of capital. So anything donated is appreciated, and it goes immediately to trying to save my daughter from this horrific situation of being in a house where her brother was killed and sleeping in a bed where her brother was killed, and still stating that she's being abused and no one is doing anything about it.
Yeah. And what's your daughter's name? Sasha?
Yes.
So I know we've got a lot of prayer warriors here. Please pray for her. Do battle for her in the heavenlies, please. And then go ahead.
She just deserves so much more than this. If
Yes.
I would have known any of what I know now, even at 17, I would have ran for the hills. Like, I would have rather been homeless than this, because one of the greatest pains that I have is what it's done to my daughter and my son. Like, I am not the kind of person that cared much about myself. And that's why when I would be abused, it wasn't a big deal to me because it was just me and I was used to it, almost to the point where it almost became comfortable because it was just
Yes.
the only thing I've ever known.
Yes.
Um, but with my children, like, they didn't ask to be born into this world. They didn't ask to live this way. They didn't ask to suffer. my son didn't ask to be raped to the point where he was dying, and it makes me so angry at myself because I could have stopped this. If I would have just known the red flags, if I would have just
Right.
stepped away, if I would have stopped wanting to help him so much and heal him and just recognize that he is an unfixable, untreatable monster. And some people are just straight up evil and you cannot help them.
Yes.
He's evil. He is literally evil incarnate.
Yes. Yes. And so, yes, absolutely. There's so many people on here that are saying that they will pray for you. Um, so let's kind of go with what you would like to see happening from here forward, and then we'll wrap up.
So there has been good news and there has been movement, but I cannot share in detail what it is.
Okay, that's fine.
What I can state is a pretty high chance of incarceration. I can't state why or what it's for because I was advised by.
Yeah, no, I don't want you to do anything remotely. I want you to protect this. I mean, with every little inch and drop. So yes, no worries. How about, why don't you give the GoFundMe? What's the name on the GoFundMe?
Save my daughter.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the title. 1 second.
And I'm gonna make sure that this goes into the description box, and that the petition link goes into the description box. What else do you need?
Honestly, just for people to keep sharing and share my post, share the story, keep James' name alive. If any connections that anyone might have that they can put me to would be fabulous.
What kind of connections are you looking for?
Civil attorneys, detectives, police officers, judges, like you said, anyone who can help.
And specifically in Cook County?
Cook or Kane.
Cook or Kane, okay.
And I linked you my GoFundMe just now in your text, and I will link the petition as well.
And then you only have your first name on here, so I'll put your last name. It's is that your name in Facebook?
Yes, it's Kara Witkowski.
It's WITKOWSKI. I will also put that in the description box. Are you on any other social media?
Honestly, no, it's pretty much just Facebook.
Okay. And then anyone that's listening that has a channel, would you be interested in going on their channel as well?
Oh, definitely. I'm very open. Anybody who just even wants to just ask me questions, because I know I've done multiple shows now where I've just given the entire story and the background and everything else. But if anyone just wants to have me on their show and just have a conversation and, ask me questions or do a debate, I'm down for that too.
Okay. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need or that you might want people to help you with. I mean, do you have a prayer team? Are you open to having a group? I mean, there's so many women. I have people that literally are praying for me and take care of me and are so sweet to me since I've started this. And I'm sure that there'd be the same for you if that's something that you would like to have on people on the regular checking on you and praying with you.
I'm open to that. I'm also open to any women's groups. Like if there's a group for traumatized women where women can just kind of talk and lean on each other and, be a community with one another. If that exists as well, that's something that I would definitely be interested in.
Yeah. Do you have some new shows that are coming up so we can plug those as well? Like, are you going to be on with Madison and Claire?
Yes, Madison told me like she's reached out to basically her network, her team of people, and she wants to get me on as many shows as she can, and she wants to do shows with me as well. I still have to talk to her right now. She's not feeling well,
Yeah,
so
yeah. She was
I,
supposed to be here with us. Yeah.
I'm not sure what she has planned or coming up for me, but I will definitely speak with her and find that out as soon as possible. And then maybe you can just do an update on your channel
Yeah.
and people know.
Yeah. And I have a friend that's got a big true crime channel too that maybe I'll reach out to him and see if he's open. So,
Yeah, that would be great because this story seems to resonate very well with the true crime community.
uh huh.
I've had a lot of luck on getting a large audience when I have done the true crime shows in the past, like Unmasked was true crime.
Right.
And then the good thing about true crime is they typically have connections with news media
Mm-hmm.
because, once something gets on the news and it becomes mainstream, you
Yeah.
have an even larger chance of getting justice.
Yeah. And Michael Jaco just put in the chat that he said, let's have her on my YouTube channel with Madison and Jesse, which is a great idea because Jesse can maybe, you two could break down some of the possibilities with the SRA. And maybe you'd have questions for her. So you would have some more information that could end up helping you. I don't know. But Michael Jaco and I do the intuitive report, and we would love to host you for that. So, and he's got probably close to 100,000 viewers on YouTube now too.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Michael. If you want to reach out to me on Facebook, we can plan that. Or if you want to give him my number, I would be fine with that as well.
Absolutely. What I'll do is his wife, Tracy Joe, helps him with the show, and I'll just check in with her and we will get an email out to everybody. I'm trying to think if there's any other ways while we have everybody here, but thank you so much, Michael. You've never seen me speechless before. I'm usually giggling and wow, this is just crazy. And it's happening right now. I think that's the part that's hitting me the most. I'm just so frustrated that at this moment, that this is happening, and to so many people, this is, y'all, this is just one of the bad stories that got out. This is happening where there's people that are beginning this process and they've been told they can't have their 8-month-old baby for a year and that they have to have, supervised visits. And we got to stop. We've all got to get together and stop as a force. But yeah, let's get the word out, Karen. I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for being so brave and courageous and loving your daughter so much and having faith in yourself. You have grown a lot in a short period of time.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. That means the world to me. And thank you for giving me a platform where I can share this story, as painful and heartbreaking as it may be. But for people to know what can happen in family court, for people to know what can happen in a very abusive relationship, even if it doesn't seem abusive at first, honestly, you start seeing those little red flags just run for the hills because those little red flags they become blinking red lights.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to hold a vision that you and your daughter will be reunited and that you will be helping young ladies making better and better choices for themselves. So this can all be prevented in the future.
That is another reason why I do what I do is for one, for other women to not be afraid to speak out about their abuse and their sexual abuse and to not
Mhm.
be ashamed of it, because a lot of women are taught to be ashamed, and there is no shame in being abused. There's only shame in the abuser.
Right.
And the other reason is to protect children, because if you know the signs of this sexual abuse, if you know the controls, the powers, and kind of how the system works and how it's very basically, literally, I was just on a show and the statistic is if you disclose sexual abuse or have concerns about sexual abuse while you're in a family court case, 90% of the time, you will end up having your kids taken.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. That's just sick. So almost like if you had to redo it now, knowing what you know about family court, would you have changed the way you maneuvered and gotten the custody first and then but you really couldn't have the way that yours went down, right? Because of the rape first. Oh,
Exactly. So I was already kind of screwed from that point because I'm already saying, like, this
there's
man raped
problems in the
me.
house. Yeah. Even though it's not, yeah. Wow. Well, everyone is saying thank you very much. Everyone is so proud of you. I am so proud of you. I'm thankful that Madison connected you here. I hope that you felt safe. Sorry, I was kind of speechless a lot of the times. I just didn't even I still am. I think I'm just processing it in all the dimensions, you know?
It's it's definitely something that's taken me quite a long time to process and even get down to a summary that I gave you. I mean, I know you said like my last interview takes 2 hours. Unfortunately, that's how long it takes because it's just so long and there's so
Right.
many moving parts to this case that if you miss something, then the whole thing just becomes completely unraveled.
Right. No, and trust me, I have no problem with the time. I was just trying to be respectful of you. I thought, maybe I can help her out where I could list some of the stuff that happened. But you need to do it the way you want to do it because you're the one this is your journey. This is your mission. And I think for the age that you are and all that you've been through, you are an absolute walking miracle.
Thank you. No one's
Yeah.
ever told me that. That's really sweet.
Well, good. We'll end on something nice.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy that you hung in there, girl. And there's a lot of kids hanging in the balance. So don't stop. Keep going.
I will. I will never stop fighting.
All right, girl. There's going to be a lot of people praying for you tonight.
Thank you.
All
You have
right.
a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, Kara. Bye. Goodbye,
Goodbye.
everyone. Please share it, and I will have everything in the description box.